Hello, podcast listeners. Welcome to the 16th episode of the Wim Lex Show. We're delighted that we're being joined today by Wang Yu. He's a serial entrepreneur, born in Beijing, and he grew up in Sweden. Wang Yu studied 2 masters and moved back to China in 2007 to start his first business, P1, a fashion community. Founded by Yu Wang and Sophia Pan, they ventured into dating, and he is now the founder of Tantan, the number 1 dating app in China. Some call it the Tinder of China. Tantan has more than 200 million users, and we're delighted that Wang is on our show today. So hi, Wang.
Hi, it's a great pleasure to join you guys.
Thanks so much for being in the podcast. My first question is about you. I mean, you've been raised in Sweden, but born in Beijing. How did you come up with the concept of starting a dating app in China?
So, like you said, I'm born in Beijing and grew up in Sweden. And me and Sophia were the co-founders both of P1 and later on Tantan. And I think of the Chinese people in Sweden, we were probably the only ones I know of at the time who both wanted to start our own company and also wanted to go back to China. So that's why we did it back in 2007. And back then, like social media communities were the hottest thing, right? So we did that for a pretty high-end positioned community called P1. And that turned out to be very challenging because it's such a niche market. And it's hard to scale it, as we noticed after 7-8 years. But the quality of the users were very high. And since you basically had a bunch of very good-looking guys and girls, the main activity on P1 was mainly dating. So we really had a lot of experience in the dating area. And another thing was that during the P1 years, we very early on, I think 7-8 years ago, we wanted to incorporate a feature called Secret Crush. So that feature is that in P1, the rules are that when you look at someone's profile, you become their visitor, right? So then they can look at you as well. And if you look at each other, chances are that you'll start talking, right? And Secret Crush would be that on top of this, you can press the Secret Crush button when you visit someone's profile. And they won't know, no one will see this. But if they visit you and also press your button, then you'll both know. And this is very similar to how Tantan and Tinder works. But back then, we decided not to do it because we wanted to focus on being a community. We didn't want to turn it into a dating app. So then after 7-8 years, we tried several pivots and, tried to make it scale, make it bigger. But it was really difficult. And we summed it up into like 3 main learning points, right? One was that the target group was too niched. The market was too small. The second was that the pain point wasn't strong enough. Fashion socializing isn't something people have to solve as a need. And the third point was that the product grew too heavy. There were too many features, and if you don't have a core like killer feature that people really need to use and try to compensate that by adding other features, you're not making the product stronger. You're actually just diluting your already not so strong product. So then we also saw that Tinder was doing pretty well, right? And they were basically running this idea we had with Secret Crush since many years back. So we decided to give it a shot in China. That's how we started doing the dating.
Wow. Fascinating story. And I can imagine that during those years, there were many entrepreneurs thinking of developing the so-called Tinder of China. I know of a company, QQ, that I think also had social engagement features and dating features. In that market with other social dating apps present, how could you grow so quickly and become the market leader?
Yeah, so when we started, there were around 100 companies doing similar products. And I think the reason we succeeded was because we had such long experience from P1. Basically during the P1 days, we made every mistake you can make. And by basically avoiding to make the same mistakes, we were doing a much better job than everyone else who hadn't made those mistakes before. So I think that it really just came down to that. And they didn't fail because we were doing a good job. They failed because they did a bad job. And I mean, some examples, right? You have to be very clear about what pain point, what kind of need you're trying to take care of. And we spent quite a long time trying to clarify and specify exactly what it was. And for us, our definition of the pain point we're solving is that singles have big lack of channels to meet people. That's like a super pain point in China. And we didn't position it as, quick sex or getting married, which is quite, in extremes, which most other, or I would say all other dating apps I've seen basically did. And if you're positioning as a hookup app, the problem is that you don't get the girls, right? You only get guys who are looking for sex, but then you have no girls, so they won't actually succeed and it won't work. And for matchmaking, for getting people married, you're talking about 35 plus, right, of people who haven't gotten married and who are quite desperate and also kind of recognize that they're desperate. So that's also a very small part of the market. But if you take all singles, every single has a need to meet someone, right? Because if they already met someone, then they probably wouldn't be single anymore. So that's a need that 100% of the market has, and it's a perfectly normal need that you wouldn't be ashamed to acknowledge that you have. So that's one big thing. And in connection to this pain point, it's quite interesting because we think that the pain point is much stronger in China than in the West for a few reasons. One is that Chinese people don't really have a flirting culture. And this applies to many Asian countries, but especially in China. So people are actually very open to dating. So there's a dating culture. It's perfectly okay nowadays that you have had, several boyfriends or girlfriends before you get married. That's not the issue. But the issue is reaching out to a stranger and start talking. That is seen as very indecent still. Because of that, there are basically no viable offline channels to meet people. For example, when we started, we're looking for, ways to get the initial user group, right? And we looked at, can we do some promotions at college parties? And we noticed that there were no college parties, not a single one, basically. So no parties for young people. Very few go to clubs or bars. It's basically the international Chinese people who have been abroad who go to clubs and bars. And if you meet someone, right, say in the mall or in the elevator, in the subway, you don't talk to them because that is seen as indecent. So there's basically no way to meet someone offline. The other thing is that unlike most other countries, in China, most young people are not in their home city. They move to a bigger city to either study or work, right? So most young people are actually, and these are singles, right? Most young singles are in a different city than their home city for studying or working. And that makes them much more lonely, right? They don't have any friends or family. And because they don't have any friends or family, there's even less people who can make introductions for them.
I totally believe in the market. So the market is there. As I've learned from other dating providers, the revenue potential in the market seems to be limited. I think the Match Group is one of the biggest providers worldwide. They've started with some standard dating portals. I don't know what the history of dating portals was in China. If can you tell us a little bit about have there kind of big dating portals in China, or did it start with like the mobile approach? And my other question would be, is there a real revenue model behind the business? Can we just think about this app like Tinder users are using Tinder in Europe? Is it pretty much the same? Even the premium model? Can you elaborate on this a little bit? So has there been like big dating portals in China, and how do you earn money?
Have there been big dating what? Sorry.
Dating portals like the before mobile
portals.
Before Tinder came up, there'd been like very big ones, and there's still big ones. The more professional dating, I would say. Whereas like Tinder in Europe is more seen, or Germany at least, I can tell for Germany, is more seen like a hookup app, as you described it. So maybe you can guide us a little bit about the history of dating infrastructure in China.
Yeah, so China is it's quite different because I would say the biggest online platform for dating was QQ. So that's actually what made them big. It's kind of what got Facebook started in the beginning as well, right? But these two companies, Tencent is basically seen as the Facebook of China, right? So they basically made a very early pivot from dating into friends socializing. But dating was what got them started. And QQ evangelized the whole dating market, the online dating market in China. So my generation, people born in, late 70s, early 80s, I would say about half the people I know in my age found their partners through QQ back in those days. So that's how big it was, right? And obviously there's a lot of revenue potential behind that. Tencent has the same valuation as Facebook nowadays. But that's because they also expanded towards the socializing with friends, which is a much bigger market. Then if you talk about very serious matchmaking platforms, you have Gen.I, which Match Group had a stake in that they, I think, recently sold off. And you also have Jiayuan and Baihe. Those are the three players. They were also very early on, and they're all listed companies, I think, with relatively high valuations. We're talking about, I think over 1 billion RMB in revenue per year for each of these companies. Baihe and Jiayuan merge into one. So in that case, we're talking about the combined company. And but like I said, matchmaking is subset of the total dating market.
Just to understand, like the valuation, the 1 RMB is like, although I think €1 is more or less like 8 to 10 RMBs. So the overall revenue of the platforms you were talking about are about, like, let's say 100 to 150 million euros. That doesn't seem to be so big compared to the sheer size of the Chinese market. Do I understand it wrong, or is it even bigger?
No, you're right, but that's because I would say they're not really maximizing what they could have been.
Okay.
And also they're focusing too much on the, getting people married, so to say. That's, like I said, I think that's a much smaller part of the market. If you look at Match Group, right, most of their gross revenues is coming from Tinder nowadays. It's also not from Match.com, right? It's about the same thing.
Oh, okay, got it. So there has been like dating portals in China before. I don't know if you married or if you found your love of your life through this portal. I understood that you did it somehow this way. But is the revenue model of your app the same as the Tinder model? Sorry.
Just to clarify, right? I said that the biggest facilitator for dating was QQ, which is owned by Tencent. I don't know if you're familiar with QQ and Tencent.
Yeah, of course. Tencent is like in our podcast always a part. Like it's we compare like the Batman economy and the GAFA economy. So Tencent is a part. I don't know QQ in particular.
So Tencent basically had two big services. One is WeChat. One is QQ. QQ was basically all of Tencent before they launched WeChat. So that was de facto the service for Tencent till I remember when they launched WeChat, but say 6 years ago.
Okay.
So they were the biggest player in dating. These others, you're talking about dating matchmaking portals. Those were the ones I mentioned that has reasonable revenue, but not not very big, and that's because they were kind of like a fringe product somehow.
Okay, and can you tell me? Can you tell us a little bit more about the view on one customer? So where do you now? The app already is very big. So does it like grow organically because it's so much? Is there still a lot of potential to grow organically? Do the app need to go into other countries? Is it even possible? to go into other markets? And I'd like to learn a little more about like the churn rate. If the app is really successful, there must be a decent churn rate on the user base.
So the thing is that we merged with Momo, which is another big dating and social entertainment company early in 2018, right? So we're indirectly a public company, and that's why I can't give out any actual numbers. Those are always communicated in connection to quarterly reports for Momo, which I'm a part of. I'll see how much I can say, right?
So when we are looking into retail models in Europe, and there's like an e-commerce shop, for example, we are trying to understand. So how do they get new customers, and where do these customers come from? What do you have to pay for a new customer? Yeah. What is the average revenue? And then we can somehow relate to the stability of the business model, of the underlying business model. I know it's very hard to transfer it into the dating market, but there's also customers, people that want to date. There must be kind of a churn rate. There's kind of a revenue model behind. So we don't need to understand the overall numbers of your business model, but I'd like to. So I
can give you some basic notions, right? So first of all, the main part of our growth is organic, right? And always has been. On top of that, we are doing a lot of marketing. And we have also been among the most innovative internet players in terms of how we do marketing. So since we got started back in 2014, I think we more or less switched the main marketing methods almost every half year. Because after a while, basically, whatever you do, you will have more or less saturated that marketing platform you're using, right? And if the acquisition costs are good, then all the other players, not necessarily in dating or social, but all the other internet players will see that this is good, and they will start doing it as well. Which means that it becomes more or less time to change into something else. But with that said, we do spend significant money on marketing, but that's still less than half of our total growth. Most of the growth is organic.
Okay, I got that. And do you have like a strategy to nurture the users, or to like give the users more opportunities above from just dating? So an e-commerce business would always try to add more like products on the website just to grow the basket size, or to add new services, or to verticalize. Is it the same in your business? Or maybe you've started to do some, the college parties, for example, could be a good example where to venture in.
I think fundamentally e-commerce and social are very different business models. So I wouldn't compare them one to one. I don't think Amazon would really be comparable to Facebook either, right? So I can say a few things. First of all, you were talking about churn rate, right? We've had very good retention numbers since we got started. So, I mean, of course, there's some churn, but there's churn in any kind of service. But we have very significant numbers in terms of daily active users and monthly active users, right? People swipe over 1 billion times a day on Tantan. I think we generated around 10 billion matches to date. And you have to think about that a match is between two people, right? So it's actually 20 billion match experiences so far. So it's significant scale. It's not like we acquire users and then they just all disappear. We have very significant traffic every day. And it's been continuously growing. We think that we probably have another 3x room to grow in China, because you have basically around 300 million single people or so, people in that age group. And each person, each account is like a phone number, right? And people tend to change phone numbers. So each phone number is not necessarily one person. So we have, say, 200 million users, but today we have gotten like 600 million users. Maybe we would have had a total of around 400 million people registering, and it would have been by that time, a few years from now, 6-7 years after we started, So some people out of those have already moved out of the age of being single. So 300 million is at any given point how many people are singles. So that's, I think, quite realistic, and it's also roughly the numbers that Momo, the company we merged with, kind of like the numbers they have, being a very established company. So there's definitely room for around 3x growth still in China.
What I'm still trying to figure out, so I haven't used your app still, and I think even the ones that are not single anymore could be users. So if I look into Tinder usage in Europe, but as you said, it's not a hookup app. But have you gained some insights about like changing of dating behavior? So compared when you started the app or the environment, how many matches resulted in like real world meetings, or in how much exchange per match? So how many messages have been exchanged like 3 years ago compared to today? Is there some change in social behavior driven by social media?
No, like I said, I think QQ were the ones who really evangelized the whole dating market, online dating market. That's almost 20 years ago, right?
Okay.
They were launched. They just had a 20-year birthday, I think, yesterday or so. So people are actually very used to online dating. That's not an issue. So for us, the kind of activity levels per user have been quite stable since we started. But in terms of just messages, I think we just bypassed 100 million messages sent per day. So there's a lot of messages going around. And
100, just to understand, 150 messages per user per day on your app alone?
No. 100 million messages per day.
Okay. But
right?
100 million messages on your app, or
on our app.
Oh, that's a lot.
Yeah, that's a lot. And how many of these matches and chats that lead to actual relationships, we don't really know. We know it's a lot. I mean, being conservative, I would say we probably have generated tens of millions of couples. Right, that's I think a conservative number.
Yeah, but that's cool. Actually, that's actually a cool achievement. So,
yes,
okay, you can say you have like created a lot of love.
Oh yes, I mean, if you look at people somewhere between 18 and 30, people who actually end up together, a pretty significant portion of them nowadays met through Tantan in China. And you asked about our plans overseas. We are doing some expansion into the rest of Asia currently. So we have quite significant numbers outside China too, actually.
And does it work? So is there like do you have like a competitive advantage by expanding, I don't know, into Thailand or Vietnam or wherever it suits you? Is that something like, because it's like it seems to be a very local approach. So you have like network economy effect in your country. So it's hard like to gain the same traction today in the same market as you're in China, but it's very hard actually to transfer this kind of network effect into other countries. So am I right, or is it the wrong view here?
Well, of course. I mean, local network effects don't really spread that much. They spread to a certain extent because there's a lot of Chinese people in the rest of Asia too, right? But that's not what we rely on. In the end, in terms of just expanding geographically, it's quite a lot about localization.
Okay.
For example, if you look at Facebook, what really got them to take off in the rest of the world was when they launched this feature where people could translate Facebook as users, right? They let the users be able to translate the app into their own languages. And then they got much better localized translations of the app. And they got, translations into every possible imaginary language or language you can imagine, right? So localization is very important. And I mean, if you look at the players at our scale, I think there is more or less just us and Match Group out there. And in terms of Asia, I think we probably are much closer to being able to, having a localized fit in both of, both in terms of products, the kind of like the type of communication used and operational and marketing methods. So yeah, we're not really afraid of any competition anywhere actually. So it's just about how aggressively we want to pursue our growth outside of China. And right now, it's a so-so kind of situation. We're still focused mainly on China because there's such a big room to grow still.
Okay, Willem, do you want to jump in on your question? Okay.
To wrap up the podcast, impressive numbers with more than 2 million users, over 1 billion, more than 10 billion matches. I mean, we're talking data, big numbers.
I have one last question, just for the wrap up. We don't try to do it longer than like a domestic flight. That's actually the time people have to listen to podcasts in Europe. And domestic flight in Europe is different to China, obviously, only lasting 40 minutes. So my wrap-up question would be: so apart from like spreading the network in China and doing some test and learn overseas, is there something really new stuff to come? Is there like people are talking a lot of artificial intelligence, AR, even in dating? Is this relevant from what you can see today?
Yeah. So two of our big focuses going forward, except for just pure scale of growth. One is obviously on revenues. You asked about that, so I'm going to just talk a little bit about that. We have launched some revenue models, mainly subscription-based models. So the app is kind of like a freemium type where you can use it for free, but you can also get a subscription and get features and access that others can't. And that is going very well without being able to go into actual numbers, but we're seeing some very significant revenues. Outside of that, we're also going to explore revenue models where it's not subscription based. It's revenue models where you can spend anywhere from almost close to nothing to very big amounts per user every month. And if you look at Momo, who has kind of like a combined dating and social entertainment kind of products and revenue model, one of their big revenue generators is live streaming, right? And it's quite a lot about giving virtual gifts to the streamer. And you have people who spend millions of dollars per month on doing that, up to like $10 million a month. On that. So the ARPU numbers in China is not lower than in the US or the Europe. It might be if you look at the median, right? But if you look at the total amount, because there are quite a lot of ultra rich people, it's kind of like games, right? If you can extract the top 1 to 2% of users who spend a lot of money, then your total ARPU can increase manifold. So that's one of the things where we are going to take a look at. So that's one thing. And in terms of algorithms and AI, that's obviously a very central part of our product. So that is the third part we're going to spend a lot of effort in. And I don't know if you watched the movie A Beautiful Mind, but basically this exact problem is what led to Nash his whole theorem, about game theory. So it's actually a very difficult problem to solve. If you have 5 guys and 5 girls, and all the 5 guys like the best looking girl the most, right? And vice versa with the girls, how do you get as many people as happy as possible? And you're actually not going to give each person's most preferred choice to each person, because then the sum of happiness is not going to be maximized. Everyone has to optimize both for themselves and for all of society. And that's a typical problem to solve through something like AI, but it's a very, very difficult problem, actually.
I know, that's a very good closing. I think Nash and the game theory is one of the main part of the Kassenzone podcast and even the Wimlex show. And what we've learned in platform economy from the game theory is, or the so-called prisoner's dilemma, is the best position is to be the prison provider. Which is the case here. So actually, that's how platform economy is working. You need to be like the provider of the infrastructure. And then within the infrastructure, you have to develop systems that let the prisoners or lovers to figure out what's the best way to find the match. But it's very cool that you have this view and this platform view on the app. I'd like to deep dive in the app itself, but it's like for me from a European perspective, not very accessible, so to say. But or is there like ways where we can have like a deeper look inside into it?
Tantan is available, all over the world, and we do have quite a lot of users in the West too. We just haven't ever done any marketing in the West, so it's pure organic, mostly from Chinese people flying overseas. So it's not close to as many users as there are in Asia, but you can still download it. You can just search for Tantan on App Store and or on Google Play and have a look at yourself.
Yeah, okay. I just found it on the Play Store. First review is like from 2 days ago. I love Asian girls. The app is really, really cool to get a match with Asian girls. 5 stars. Yeah. Okay. I deep dive. I need to discuss it with my wife, but I deep dive into it. But thanks a lot. So we will be happy to host you and to meet you like in Europe if you happen to be here next time in 2019. It was very interesting, a very, very new view in the Wimlex show. I hope we did not have so many audio issues here. But thanks a lot for your time and very open and honest question on our show. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great to be here.